Now that you've been through the child find process and the evaluation process, what happens if your evaluation comes back and your child doesn't qualify and you believe that they do qualify? Or let's say that they did qualify at one point through an evaluation, but now the school is saying they no longer qualify for special education or related services. What are your options then? Well, an independent educational evaluation is one of the due process protections that you have under the IDEA. And let me explain a little bit what an independent educational evaluation, an IEE, is. Okay, after the evaluation and it comes back and says your child doesn't qualify, then you have the option for asking for a private evaluation at public expense. That means that the school would go ahead and pay for an evaluation, not through the school, but through somebody who's independent of the school, and that it would be paid for at public expense. Now, the school has two options once you request an independent educational evaluation, and we have a letter that's attached to this section where you can request an independent educational evaluation. Once you request one, the school has two options. One, they can go ahead and do it, which is fine. They'll give you a list of people that you can send your child to be evaluated. Or they can stand by their own evaluation and ask for a due process hearing. The change here is this is one of the times that the burden of proof shifts to the school. If the school asks for a due process hearing, they have to prove that their evaluation is adequate. So generally what you see is schools just go ahead and do an independent educational evaluation because more information is always better. But sometimes they do ask for a hearing, and you can go to that hearing and an administrative law judge will decide. The key here is if you get an evaluation back and your child doesn't qualify, but you're seeing things that aren't in the evaluation, or your medical provider is seeing things that are not in the evaluation, you may want to ask for an independent educational evaluation. But if it comes back and your child doesn't qualify and you kind of agree with the results, then everything is okay, but keep an eye on things in case your child starts falling behind. Next is the review, a simplification of an IEE of the rules and regulations. Then we have a copy of the rules and regulations, and as I mentioned before, we have a letter where you can request an independent educational evaluation. So let's quickly go over independent educational evaluations. We're just simplifying this, and following this presentation, you can take a look at the rules and regs that involve independent educational evaluation, IEEs. So take a look at those if you want to. But what is an independent educational evaluation? It's when a parent disagrees with the school evaluation. That is, there's an initial evaluation. The school may say your child does not qualify for special ed. From what you've seen and perhaps what your doctors have said, that your child does qualify. So what you do is request an independent educational evaluation. Another scenario could be that your child has qualified in the past, and now the school is saying he no longer qualifies, he or she no longer qualifies for special education. You ask for an independent educational evaluation, and an IEE is at public expense. An IEE is a procedural safeguard under IDEA, and that is one of the rights that parents have, is to ask for this. A key is the school or agency must have already completed an evaluation. You can't request an IEE prior to the school doing an evaluation, their own evaluation, and making a determination that you don't agree with. So the school has to do their evaluation first. The parent must request an IEE within a reasonable time. That is, reasonable time is never really defined, but shortly after you receive the notice that your child doesn't qualify, you should ask for an independent educational evaluation. Now, once you've requested it, the school district has two options. They can agree to do an independent educational evaluation, and this is usually what happens is the school, because it's always more information, nothing wrong with more information, so they go ahead and agree to it. But they can not agree to do an independent educational evaluation, and then they have to request a due process hearing, and they have to defend their own initial evaluation. So even from a pragmatic standpoint, sometimes it's often more cost effective to go ahead and do an independent educational evaluation then involve an attorney and ask for a hearing. So if the school agrees to the independent educational evaluation, the school will provide you with a list of possible evaluators and a criteria that has to be followed for the IEE. Other things that need to be taken into consideration: the IEE must be at a reasonable expense. It can't be highly expensive. The school will provide you a list, and if you agree with that list of evaluators, then go ahead and do it. If you don't like any of the evaluators on that list, ask the school for more names. They should give you some also. Must be within a reasonable distance. That is, you can't have a child who goes to school in the middle of the country and then ask for an evaluation on the East Coast. It must be within a reasonable distance of the school. Once again, reasonable is determined generally by courts, but within 30 to 50 miles at least. That's probably as far as you can go. It may not be unreasonably delayed by the school, and it must be conducted by qualified evaluators. And usually when the school gives you a list, always when the school gives you a list, those will be qualified, what the school considers qualified evaluators. And here is the last and the key thing about an IEE is the school doesn't necessarily have to absolutely follow an independent educational evaluation. They only must take it into consideration when they're looking at whether your child qualifies or not. So even though you've got an independent educational evaluation that says yes, your child should qualify for special education, the school may still stand by their old evaluation that says that your child does not qualify for special education, and then you have to go to hearing again. But once again, you have more information for the administrative law judge to make that decision. Or the school may take the IE into consideration and say, well, there were some things that we missed in our original evaluation, so we will opt to go ahead and qualify your child for special education. Either way, that's what an independent educational evaluation is used for. As I mentioned before, the rules and regs are next, so if you want to take a look at those, that's fine.